It has been 50 years today since the landmark signing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. By signing the act into law, President Lyndon Johnson changed America as it was known, opening doors for not just African Americans, but women and other minorities as well.
And that act was one of the most sweeping pieces of civil rights legislation ever passed. It even affects the way we live today.
WAND's Doug Wolfe, live in Decatur, where we see the name of a civil rights leader every day. Doug?
Sean, we're on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, named after the civil rights leader who worked with Lyndon Johnson to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in the face of stiff opposition. It was a dark time in history. Blacks marching for equality, the white power structure fighting them every inch of the way.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Peaceful protesters attacked with dogs and fire hoses.
And the dogs are being allowed to bite them, the water hoses being used on them, and I remember that vividly when I think of the civil rights movement.
Secretary of State Jesse White went to college in segregated Alabama.
We had to drink water out of separate water fountains and use separate washrooms, and then the schools were segregated.
President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, Martin Luther King Jr. at his side, allowing blacks to have the same rights as whites. Richland Community College Associate Professor Yvonne Hawkins watched on TV.
I was sitting on the couch with my father when it was signed, and so therefore I remember my father, once it was signed, saying, finally we get a chance to do what we want to do.
Hawkins says a lot has changed, although African Americans have hit a glass ceiling in the workplace.
Administrative levels or CEO positions, women have made the inroads of breaking that glass ceiling, but you're seeing African Americans far and few between breaking that ceiling.
50 years, with progress still needed. Civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. died less than 4 years later in 1968. Lyndon Johnson died in 1973, but the Civil Rights Act still lives on today. Sean?
Certainly worth commemorating. Thank you so much, Doug.